Hey, I have a question for you. You know, I always got a question. How can you ensure that your project is on the right path to excellence? Hey, if you stick around, we're going to unpack that. In today's episode, I talk about what is benchmarking in project management. Again, what is benchmarking in project management? I go by the name of ED for you smart and intelligent folks out there. Listen, that just simply means ed. I used to have a 7 point framework, but now I have an 8 point framework because I'm feeling that I want to over deliver and make sure that I provide as much value as possible. Here we go. First point, benchmarking defined. Let me unpack what benchmarking is. Benchmarking is a systematic process of measuring and comparing project performance, processes, or outcomes against recognized standards or best practice. Now let's get into the meat of this. Now there's three types of benchmarking. Now there's probably more than that, but these are the three that I unpacked for you guys, family. So we got the internal benchmarking, external benchmarking, and my favorite, competitive benchmarking. Let's look at each one of these. So internal benchmarking, that is basically the comparing aspects of your project with other phases or departments within your organizations. External benchmarking, that is basically evaluating your project against external organizations or industry standards. Sort of, if you look at, you remember OPAs and EFFs? Well, you go look that up and you'll be able, not the OPA part, but the EFF. Anyway, I digress. Competitive benchmark, as I told you, this is my favorite. I love to compete in a healthy, non-toxic way. But competitive benchmarking is basically assessing your project against direct competitors in your industry. Let's move on to point number three. My favorite, KPIs. You talking about the keys? I got the keys, not those keys. This is a professional environment. No, key performance indicators. That's basically selecting the relevant key KPIs that align with your project goals and the fundamentals of benchmarking. You mind if I tell you a story? One of the things that I've noticed in my years of doing this thing we call project management is that we create these dashboards because we want to watch this, sell how well or how or not well our project is actually performing. One of the things is that I love about dashboards and I hate about dashboards. One thing I like about dashboards is if it's done right, it can truly be a Picasso of painting a picture of what is actually going on. But then the other aspect of it is I say the more toxic aspect of where basically you paint a picture of something that you know is not actually happening because number one, either you're afraid to change the project color from green to yellow or red because of maybe the impact or what comes with that. And sometimes you start making up stats and you're like, this makes no sense. Like, if I read this, does this tell me where we are at in the project? So that's just a special note, family. When you are leading a project, your dashboard should be able to pinpoint exactly where you are in the project. If that does not do that, then you may want to try to find a way to create a different dashboard because it's just like anything. I mean, one of the things that I learned when they were saying about leading a project that somebody should be able to look at your schedule and your plan and be able to understand exactly what is going on within the project without having to look at the dashboard aspect, being able to look at the schedule and be like, oh, it's on time because of the tasks are met. The project plan should be able to articulate where you go, where you're at, or excuse me, where you've been, where you're going, and where you're at. Ooh, I like that. Let's move on to point number four. Data collection. That just basically means gathering data on the project performance, processes, and outcomes and the foundation of benchmarking. Point number five, analysis phase. You know, one of the things is when you collecting data, it really helps you identify the gaps and the areas of improvement. One of the things that I love about during the analyze phase, or more or less you look at that around monitoring and controlling within the project management phases, is it gives you an opportunity to really truly see how this project is performing based on what you guys thought it was, especially in a waterfall environment because you have to go through each of these steps, or I should say stages, and sometimes you don't get a chance to know exactly where you are until you get to a certain phase versus scrum, because I know you guys are going to beat me up. What you mean you don't know where you're at? No, what I mean versus more of a scrum framework. A scrum framework, we may run, a sprint or two or more within in its time box. So we'll say after 2 weeks we're going to look at the work that we're done, which is, and then see if it makes sense, or do we need to redirect and adjust and adapt. So during the analyst phase or analyzing phase of this, it gives you an opportunity to really look at your data points and see what you need to do to fix anything that is either falling off, they say falling off the wagon, or basically just not aligned of what you guys agreed on from a triple constraint aspect. If you don't know what the triple constraint is, or how about this, the iron triangle, which is your scope, cost, time, and time, and most of all, your quality. Let's move on to point number 6. Performance targets. See, benchmarking aids in setting achievable, say what? Achievable performance target. You see, I like to have fun with this because I understand that you're watching these videos and you want to be educated, but yet sometimes you need to be entertained to understand that the importance of benchmarking, though back to the topic of the importance of benchmarking, is being able to achieve your performance targets based on best practices. Oh man, I miss best practices. Have you ever led a project and there weren't best practices in place? Like, we were just creating them as we were going along. Oh, maybe that wasn't you. Maybe that was one of my projects. No, seriously, family, being able to set a see, best practices, when I look at it, is the foundation. Meaning, hey, do we have a charter? Do we have a scope outline, and then do we have a locked in approved scope, that we're not creating scope as we go, because this is a predictive, or better yet, a waterfall type project. So we have to ensure that we are protecting that scope, because that's one of the things I see in projects that from gold plating or scope creep, any one of those terminologies you want to use, and I've created a video on both of them. But what I'm saying, family, is that we have to always be sure that we are protecting that iron triangle. And I want to call it, besides quality on that iron triangle, I want to add resources. You heard me speak of that before, because we also got to protect our resources to ensure that we don't have resource constraint. These are just best practices. And as you continue as you continue to develop as a project manager, if you're not one already, these are the things you want to always keep an eye out on for. Your resources is really going to tell you a lot what's going on the project, meaning, are they really committed or are they interested? Because I've shared that with you. There's a difference. If not, if you're new, let me unpack that. When you're committed, that means we're all in. It's not like, when you get ready, if you jump in a pool, lake, or ocean, or whatever, you don't just put your big toe in. That's just being interested, or your foot in. That's interested. Being committed, you just jump in and you like, ooh, you feel that coldness hit you, but then it just goes away easily. So I use that analogy to say, family, is that when we are in leading projects, is that we have to have best practice in place. That doesn't mean every best practices is going to make sense for that project, but at least having a foundation is better than having nothing at all. Let's move on to point number 7. I guess I have to even expound on that. Implementation of best practice, making sure that you identify strategies and processes that align best with your project. I couldn't have said it any better myself, because I always push for this, family, especially with new project managers, because they're excited, which is awesome. It's like that. It's like that feeling of like, wow, now this is my project. You transition either from a project coordinator or a business, you used to write a business analyst, and all the way to project manager or even programmer. But anyway, that feeling of knowing, hey, we have strategies and processes in place. But even though we have these in place, that doesn't mean that we can't disrupt those processes and strategies in place. But we have to have something. That's why it's important with that project charter of having a clear objective of what the next approach is. Point number 8. Listen, if you don't measure, or I should say, continuous monitoring. Regular monitoring of your project performance against benchmarks ensures that you stay on course. And family, I couldn't leave without adding I'll say a point 0.5, 8.5, really adaptation and improvement. Being open to change improvement based on benchmarking results is super essential. I know a lot of people can get stuck in their ways, and matter of fact, I'll use a better terminology. We can get in our own way because, well, we ran this project like this, last year or 6 months ago. So why can't we use the same approach? Well, there may be different resources in place. The environment may be different. So there's too many factors to always say, oh, well, we're going to just leverage what we did last year or last time, because it may not work or may not be applicable to the project that we're leading now. However, there's nothing to say that we can't use what we experience, which is wisdom or your lessons learned, and being able to take bits and pieces to see if it makes sense to be aligned. Hey, family, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. My name is ED. Until next time, you know my slogan, I'm out.